Today I am with Rara Plumptre, a woman I have got to know over the last few weeks. She is a businesswoman, she's a mother, she's a grandmother, she is a champion of the homeless, she is a supporter of millennials, she coaches millennials. She was raised in South Africa and she is now an introducer, a networker, and I think at the heart, from as I've talked to Rara, she really has this extraordinary compassion. And I remember Jeff Weiner of LinkedIn once said, compassion is empathy in action. And when I was listening to Rara speak about her life, it really came to me that this is a woman with huge compassion at the heart of what she does. She has had challenges in her life, great adversity to overcome, and she's going to talk about those things with us. And part of that is also that Rara is a singer and a sculptor, which is going to be fascinating to hear and share her stories with us. So, Rara, I know that 13 years ago, your marriage ended, and that took you on a journey of discovery and I guess a sort of real personal development journey. Would you be happy to share some of that with us? Because I know that some of those things all think they rang really true for me about some of the things that I've been through in my life.
Of course, I'd be delighted. And yes, you were right. It was 13 years ago. My husband came home one day and turned around and said, "I'm off." And I sort of said, "Oh, I'd like to come too. Where are you going?" And little did I realize, I thought my marriage was absolutely fine. Little did I realize that I was on this amazing journey, which I have 3 children and they helped me through it. It's been an incredible time and it's all been about people.
And you talked about the grief and that process of managing grief and the trauma, perhaps of the shock of a marriage ending. Can you talk a little bit about that and what happened there? Because there were some extraordinary things that came out of that journey for you.
Yes, I was obviously madly in love with my husband, and in that I had a dreadful shock, obviously, and I lost weight rapidly, not of my own doing. I was eating masses, and I don't know what it's called, but I could have pulled my heart out. When somebody says your heart aches, I could have pulled my heart out for about 3.5 weeks. It was so painful, I thought I was having a stroke. And in fact, actually, I think it's some anxiety that gives you this very, very painful heart. And I think that's when the grieving really began. I then took nearly 3 months to really get into any format. I had no counselling or help over that. I was determined to try and do it privately because I am quite a private person myself. And henceforth, why I set up CKRP for divorce areas. It's a pro bono self-help. We try to help people through different sides of it, helping people grow out of divorce and separation. So going back to that, it was a long old road, and I was very lucky. I had my 3 children. My daughter was 16 and my eldest was 21. And we had a very tough start because they were all completely polaxed by it too.
And what you talked to me about that grief. There was something that needed to release from the grief, and I think it was one day that you started singing something.
Correct. I going on to it. There was one day that I appeared in London. I came up to see a friend who very sweetly asked me to dinner. And on that evening, I met a man who was a pianist. It was a sort of jazz pianist, and he worked for Rada. And my life changed. He said, "You look as if you've got sad eyes." And I thought, oh my goodness, I must look dreadful. I took this card home to Kent, and it sat on my desk for about 2 weeks. And eventually, I felt so miserable. I thought, well, that's it. I'm going to go and learn how to sing, because he'd offer singing lessons. And I came to London, and when I started singing, I cried. I couldn't remember anything. And also some anxiety does that to you. Your brain goes, so you can't remember any words or anything. So I ended up crying for my first 2 sessions with him, of which he was very kind with me, as my emotions were beginning to obviously come out. And I ended up in absolutely loving it. It became a huge part of my life. And then I was asked to sing in front of people, which I was terribly nervous about. But that was a really huge start to my life. And eventually I got to making an album, which has been the making of me. I'm yet to release it because I'm too embarrassed to sing in public. But that whole journey was huge for me, really, really huge. And as sculpting came with it, I always feel now with people, when I have females or males, I always say to them, go back to something that you loved in sadness and weariness and emotion. If you find something that you used to love, go back to it and start it again. And that is what really saved my life. Actually, singing, I can say, saved my life.
That's amazing. And it's almost that you said about your heart breaking. It's almost as if you go back to something you love. There's a passion, and I guess there's a soul connection, is there, do you think? That's something that...
Correct. And I think when you're on a journey, and I really didn't know that, I feel, and I've said this to you before, I feel that every person that I've met in the last 6, 7, 16, 13 years or whatever it is, has meant something to me. They have all put me to where I am today. And my life is completely about people now. It's not about very many other things. I love just helping people, and it's made me feel really good inside too. And I do as much as I can. If anybody asks, I do my best.
It's funny you say that. And Anita Brightly-Hodges, I think you know, actually, I interviewed a while ago. She said out of a really bad time in her life, these amazing things happened, and her connections with charities, for example. And I think you said that experiencing homelessness yourself, really allowed you to have that empathy for others. But then it took you on that amazing journey and linked you to the charity.
Correct. So that's absolutely right, Erika. So 6.5 years ago, I arrived in London. I had to give my house up, and I arrived in London with literally £5 in my pocket, and I had to start again. And that's when my journey for helping the homeless really started, because I wanted to, even though I was at the time, all I wanted to do was to help the homeless. So I had 2 sort of wonderful friends who took me in for nearly 2 years and gave me a home, which built my strength for that period of time. I had never really lived in London. I had brief moments, but otherwise than that, I'd really never lived in London. So it was a real new challenge for me. I'd always been in the country or out in Africa or whatever.
And with the millennials, talk to me a little bit about that, because you've got this journey with the homeless, you've got this journey with your divorcees, which I do want to touch on actually as well. And then you also are really connected with, I think, sort of supporting and coaching millennials. How's that come through? With
yes, I think I was a very difficult child probably, and I went to sort of 8 different schools and climbed out of most of them and came out with 1 GCSE. It would be in shock now, I think, to most children. But in that, I have been asked, I've got a name for helping people who have real structural problems, need jobs, want to get into work, had too many CVs, pushed their CV out too many times, have no confidence. And life, I think we all know that life is about confidence, and it's trying to gain the confidence for the children that I've dealt with and I'm dealing with. So I've sort of got, it sort of comes in on, really on a sort of pro bono, self-help type area. I'm known for trying to get children back into work, to help them if they've got structural problems with doctors and psychologists. I've got a lovely area there that I have had a very sweet friend who's helped me build up a wonderful set of doctors and psychologists around me. So I feel once one is on the path of looking after somebody's child, it's really important that we do in a really good way. So from my point of view, that's the way, that's what I've done, and been very happy in it.
And tell me something. What have you learned from working with millennials? Because, you know, often we learn from our peers or perhaps even people older than us, but have you learned something that you're taking away from your life from working with millennials?
Yes, I've learned a wonderful, I think they've got I think they have much more empathy than we did. They challenge themselves more than we used to. Life is much more difficult to get a job now, and even more so now in COVID. But obviously, they have more empathy. They are very much thinkers of other halves of life. And I think the interesting thing about a lot of the children that I see, it's not just that they can't provide their own structure, it is that they are actually thinking of other people in the process as well. I think they're very much more attached to who they are than we used to be.
Interesting. And when you say attached, do you mean how their identity is showing up in the world?
Correct. I think they think about other people more than we used to. That's a generalization, but I think that, you know, obviously with the communication as it is at the moment with telephones and everything else, I think it's a little bit more self-obsessed too. But I think once you're standing in front of a child who has been lucky enough to have a good family upbringing, they are unbelievably more acute to their own environment than we ever used to be. And I think that comes with where they've got to. They're brighter, they've got more information, they're given more time to mature, and they sort of get, I think, if I'm right in saying we seem to be getting married later, they seem to be marrying later, so therefore they've got a little bit more of life than we used to have. You know, we used to get married at 16, 17, 18, 19, and maybe not 16, but, you know, very young. And now I think you're much more likely to get married at 30, 32, into your 40s.
No, I think it's interesting, isn't it? And I think maybe there's more support now as well for people that perhaps need coaching or mentoring or therapy. I think, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have those support systems. And I want to pick up on something you spoke to me about around the divorcee area as well, because I know one thing you said to me really struck me. You said often people just want to be listened to, they want to be heard. I mean, that's probably true in life sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes you just need to be heard. People need to find their voice. But I'm interested in this idea of listening and really being heard. And what that's like.
I think if I can take this back and then to hopefully answer your question, when I arrived in London, I suppose I trusted everybody. I had been in great sadness, but I trusted everybody. And what I learned very quickly, and having not been in business for nigh on 30 years, was that not everybody was trustworthy, and that really shocked me. And I suppose lots of people would say, well, how naive of you. But in fact, actually, what I still feel today is that if you are trusted and private, then people will find you. And I feel the strength in privacy and trust is one of the biggest support systems you can give any family or any person in today's world.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because isn't it strange in a world like today, there isn't a lot of privacy often. And so really, yeah, having that support around you and really recognizing and understanding that.
Really important.
And the other area that I just wanted to, I suppose, explore now, you know, we've talked a little bit about how kind of life started and your path through healing, and it's taken you on different journeys and different paths, and really supporting others, this extraordinary compassion that you have. Today, I know that you're a networker, an introducer. You connect people because, as you said, people is what you're about. Talk to us a little bit about that. What's driving you today? What do you really enjoy? What brings you joy? And I guess what's next as well? You know, you've got so many not plate spinning, but you've got so much going on in your life, an extraordinary energy that you bring to life. So I'd love to hear
So going back, I set up on arrival in London, I managed to set up 2 networking businesses, which were really lovely businesses. And in that, I managed to meet a huge amount of people around the country, which was fantastic for me. To me, the most important area is to have basic support and this, that, and the other. And I feel very strongly that with the trust issue, that networking is something that is really important to do. So to gain that experience in networking, you need to be able to be open to other people and to talk to other people. So my introductory areas is for people in business, people in any form of walk of life, that I think I can help. So I get asked to introduce a great deal, and therefore I open my book to certain people when they ask, and put people in touch in business. So for the most important thing for me is a connection area, and through that I have found a huge amount of really, really lovely people. I have worked with a very, very well-known business in Zurich, which has, I've put a family, I call it a family, I put a family around them to support them right the way through their lives. And it is tremendously important for me to think that presumably is what I'm doing right the way through my life, whether it's a child, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a connection, and whether it's with a company. So I've become an ambassador of quite a few different areas in education as well as security. I deal with a health area as well. So it's everything that I really enjoy and really love, and probably what I can be able to give back. So the idea is to support a business, I suppose, in a way that I think is right.
And I guess lastly, because I know that you and I spoke about the importance of family as well in your life, and the support that you've had from your children. I'd love to hear just a little bit about what does family mean for you, and then, you know, kind of with family and with everything else, what's next? Your grandmother, are you do you get to spend time with your grandchildren? What does life look like for you?
Well, I mean, exactly that. I mean, I'm very family-minded. In fact, I'm Russian, so I have a huge faith, and people would laugh at that, but I have a huge faith. And family is hugely important to me, and the devastation of losing a sort of part of it has made me even more so now than I was even, whatever, 13 years ago. I think I'm lucky enough, as you know, to have a grandchild, as you say, and the lovely thing about that is it makes me giggle every single minute at the moment, because basically you don't have to support that. You can be as naughty as you want to with that, and it's a joy to see the young grow up. And I've only got one at the moment, so I hope many more are going to come. But the joining of a family is hugely important. I was supported. I feel that everybody that I've been with has supported me in some way to get me to where I am today. So I have a huge gratitude to that. So not only am I only a family woman, I feel very strongly that the people I've built around me, as like of yourself, I hope I will be able to help you and whatever go forward with your life too, if you need me. And that is how it goes. So I hope that explains that for you.
Yeah, that's a lovely. It's a lovely idea, isn't it? That idea of an extended family, and I think that's what Debbie and I are looking to build really with My Age. That like-minded women. You know, it's more about the spirit of the woman, and all really supporting each other, inspiring and supporting. I think that's you know, just having connected with you and listened to you again today, it just comes through in bucket loads that you're just an extraordinary woman and giving so much.
Yes, well, when you were let out, I think I said to you ages ago, I set up a social enterprise, and it's made me very happy to have done that. And one of our strap lines on it was, adversity brings you two things, a lesson and a blessing. And I think they come in that way. So for anybody who is looking on to this call or podcast or whatever, I think very heavily on that, because you get the lesson, because basically you end up in dismantlement of some sorts. No life is just normal, but also you get a real joy. I am in the joy part, because basically now I take every day as it comes. And I think it's a really difficult thing to do, because your anxiety is always 5 steps ahead of you. And I think if you can learn to just be peaceful in your day, however much, and especially over this COVID thing, there's not a lot we can all do. We can hope we can do it, but there's not a lot we can all do in it. And I think that's the difficult thing about it. So I think if I'm being honest, I think the best thing to do is to go slowly and go well, as they say in Africa, because it's the main thing is that you cannot work thinking, oh, what am I going to be doing in 6 weeks' time? It just doesn't work like that, life. I hope that's a strength rather than a hindrance.
I love the idea of the lesson and a blessing, and I love go well and go slowly. So on that note, Rara, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I hope that we will no doubt come back to you at some point in the future and hear all about these extraordinary life paths that you're on. But again, many thanks.
It's a pleasure, and thank you so much, Erika, and I look forward to hearing from you soon, and I know we'll catch up anyhow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.